Stay tuned to find out how to magnetize Necron Praetorians and Lychguard with all 4 weapon options. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, in this video I'm going to show you how to magnetize a box of Necron Triarch Praetorians and Lychguard, and I'm going to magnetize them with all 4 weapon options. Before we get on with that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Right, let's get on and magnetize these models. Okay, so before we actually get magnetizing, we've got to build our miniatures up, excluding the arms. Now, one little tip here, when you're doing a multi-kit and you're actually going to use the models in both versions of that kit, my suggestion is you actually use bits from each kit so that it doesn't matter which model you're using, at least you've got some parts from that particular kit. Now in my case I wanted the Praetorian back piece because when I'm using them in Praetorians I think that's one of the key things that makes them stand out as Praetorians themselves. Now on the models you see in front of you I haven't glued that on, and the main reason for that, if you look at the back here, it's got that sort of orb and that's almost impossible to paint with the back section glued on. So I will do that after I've painted them. So as I decided to use the Praetorian back section, I then went for Lychguard tabards, a bit down in between their legs, and I also went for Lychguard heads. So now I've got quite a nice mixture of the 2 kits. So regardless of which kit I'm playing them in, at least I'm going to have some of the actual parts on the models. Okay, now because I was using the Lychguard head, the Praetorian back section, when it was in place, didn't actually fit very well. So let me just pop this into position. So that's where it's going to go. I will put that in after I've painted it. Now normally this back section here goes out over the head of the Praetorian, but the Lychguard have this sort of headdress section on, and that headdress got right in the way of the back piece. So what I did is I actually cut the front 2 sort of spines off. Now I am going to add a little bit of green stuff to the front of that spine just to sort of add in a little bit more detail at the end, so that should work out quite well. So I've got a good mixture of both parts. I'm now ready to magnetize them. So I'm going to get set up and we'll have a look at magnetizing these models. Right, first of all I've clipped all of the bits off of the sprues and I've cleaned up the mould lines. That's with the exception of the arms, which I've left actually on the sprue because the arms match up specifically to the WARHAMMER and the rod, these pieces just here. Now I did cut those off, but if you look in the instruction book you can easily work out which staffs go with which set of arms. Now, I have taken the mould lines off of there, but obviously I haven't clipped them off. So what we're going to do is we're going to match up a staff and the arms, and then we're going to have a look at magnetizing them. Okay, so I went to the instruction book and it was very easy to work out which staff goes with which set of arms. As long as you keep the arms on the sprue like I said, then you can just check the numbers out. So what I did, I matched up the arms and staff of this particular model, and then I cut the arms off. And what I've done, using the picture on the box, it's again very easy to distinguish the approximation of the way the staff goes, and then I blue tacked the arms into position. So they're not glued or anything at the moment, just a little bit of blue tack. And I now have roughly where this staff is going to go. It's going to go like so. Now you get 2 arms on this side and you get 1 arm on this side. So as we've got 2 arms on this side, we're going to actually glue the arm to the hand on that side there. The other side, however, we are going to have to magnetize. So before I glue the arm and hand together, I'm going to drill the holes out of the staff because it's going to be a bit easier to do than after we've glued it together. So we're going to do that, but first of all I just want to have a quick chat about magnets. Right, so magnet wise we are going to use two sizes of magnets for this magnetization, and that's going to be a 1 by 1 millimeter magnet and a 2 by 1 millimeter magnet. Pretty small magnets, especially the 1 by 1, and that's why it is absolutely essential that when you buy the magnets that you get N52 strength. That's the maximum strength that you can currently get on one of these small magnets. Now I get my magnets from Guy's Magnets. I'll put a link to the two magnets that I'm using in this tutorial in the description below for you guys to check it out, but bear in mind it is a UK company. But yeah, if you're not in the UK, search for Neo N52 magnets, disc magnets, and you want a 1 by 1 millimeter and a 2 by 1 millimeter. Now running alongside the magnets you are going to need a pin vise or a drill. This is a Games Workshop one. There are many alternatives around in your local modelling shops, and currently I've got a 1 millimeter drill bit in the vise. We'll also need a 2 millimeter bit for the two sized of magnets that we've got. Now other materials that we're going to need a knife. We're going to need some super glue. We're also going to need a little bit of green stuff. Right, okay, so I think the arm is probably still drying, so let's move on to some other areas of bits and pieces that we're going to magnetize and start drilling some holes. Okay, so let's get some holes drilled. So this is the hand here which is going to have a magnet. It's quite a small little area, so we're going to use those 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter magnets, and of course the 1 millimeter little drill bit. So let's just zoom out a little so that it focuses okay. Right, so I'm going to get a nice grip in my hand, and then I'm going to take the drill piece and find the central position. So once you found it, you basically just gently drill out the hole. Now, I have to be honest with you, I've already done mine, and that's because I did do it on camera, but the camera ran out of battery power without me realising it. So yeah, basically you just go in there to the hand and you just drill out a little hole. Now the other thing which I also did whilst I thought I was recording is I drilled a little hole in the top section here. Now the idea is that we are going to magnetize both the war sight and the staff to the top, and as you can see there's like an indentation on this section and there's a sticky out bit on this section, and we're going to use that indentation to our advantage. So as you can see, I've drilled the hole just below that indentation, and when it comes to drilling the hole on here, I'm going to go just below that sticky out section. Like I said, the camera did stop recording, but that's what I did off camera, was drill that little hole there and that hole there. So whilst you're here on the camera, this time with the battery working, I am going to drill a hole into here, the corresponding hole. So let's just do that. So again, just match it up and then gently drill in a hole. You don't have to press too hard with this plastic, just gently rotate it, a tiny bit of pressure. You can tell it's drilling because all those little bits of plastic come out as you drill. And then just double check the depth using some magnets. Just make sure that the magnet goes all the way into the hole and ends up being flush. So that's that one, and we're just going to do the same with this one here. So we've got our marker, no need to measure, I know exactly where this is going. And then just gently rotate it. Like so, just double check the depth. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we've got the holes done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to insert some magnets, and as I said, I've still got to glue on the arm here, so we put the magnets on now just to make it a little bit easier so we don't have to worry about handling this whilst that hand is gluing. Right, okay, let's get some magnets and we'll be back. Okay, so we're going to take our little magnet. I'm going to put one in there, but before we do so, I've got that bit of green stuff. I'm just going to roll it up into a little point, and I'm just going to get some green stuff in the hole. That will make it a little bit easier for the magnet to stay into position and also help it glue together basically. So just a little bit of green stuff in the hole, and then we've got our magnets. I'm going to use this magnet topper to make sure I'm going in the same way, so that should be a little bit more useful. Right, so now we need some super glue. I'm going to pop a little bit of super glue, get it to focus, just over the whole area. Like so, and then take a magnet, push it into the hole, just wipe the surplus super glue off, and that is that one done. So I'm going to do the same with the other side and also into the staff just there, but obviously into the staff will be the opposite way round so that they magnetise together. Okay, so that's all done and dried. I've also added in the magnet into the little hands there. So now we have a magnetised WARHAMMER or rod. Brilliant. Okay, so now we're going to work on the actual hand itself. So this is the section here we're going to glue to the staff, but while I've got it posed in this sort of pose, I'm going to have a quick look at the shoulder joint and work out how I'm going to magnetise that. Now in this particular instance, that arm is actually pretty square, so I know I've pretty much just got to drill a hole in there and put a magnet in. So let's get that done. Now to do this, we're going to use a bigger drill bit. Rather than this 1mm, we're going to put in the 2mm drill bit. So let's do that and we'll drill a hole. Okay, so I've swapped over for that bigger drill bit, and like I said, I'm basically just going to pull this arm out, keep it in roughly the same area that we're going to drill it. Now before we do actually go in with the drill, because obviously this is a little ball sort of idea, we're going to get our knife and we're going to make the hole. Now this knife is not very sharp, it's quite blunt. I'm just going to carefully drill just a little hole out with the end of the knife. There you go. So now we can get our bigger drill bit into that hole that we've just made and just gently drill out a 2mm hole. Now this doesn't have to go all the way into the socket. It doesn't matter if the magnet is sticking out of that joint, because in here it's actually quite deep. So let's just drill that out a bit deeper than that. Okay, seems about right. I'd say a little bit more. So I'm not pushing too hard, I'm going quite gentle here. Okay, let's get a little dry fit going on. So here's the bigger magnets. There you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue that magnet onto there. Tiny piece of green stuff, super glue, then the magnet, and then we will come back. Okay, so I've managed to glue the magnet just into that joint there. So we are now ready to glue the staff to the hand. And obviously with that dry fitting that we did at the beginning, I know exactly where this is going to be going. It's going to be going like that. So we're going to use some plastic glue for this, and going to glue that, let it dry, and we're back with the next stage. Okay, so that's gluing at the moment, so I'll be a bit careful with it, but let's just have a quick test. So we've got our little dry fitting blue tack model, and that's going to go in roughly like this. So the next stage is to drill a little hole into that wrist. So once again, small 1mm drill piece, and then a little bit of green stuff, tiny little 1mm magnet, and make sure we've got the reverse polarity to this one. Okay, so I've done that. This area here is now magnetized, and I'm just dry fitting this back into place so that I can do the magnet just on the top there. So I'm working out roughly where that magnet needs to be, and it needs to be almost level with it. So let's just take that off there. Okay, so we're going to basically drill a hole into there, and once again I'm going to use my knife just to start the hole, and just to confirm this is not a sharp knife, so even if I was to slip I can't do any damage, it's not sharp. Okay, so just drilling a little starter hole like so. And now I'm going to drill a bigger hole. Right, so the thing to bear in mind when we are putting the shoulder joints into the model, which we'll do later, is we don't have to be 100% accurate in terms of the position, but we do need to be in the rough area, and then I'm going to show you a little trick on how we're going to get these shoulder joints matching up on both sides with the WARHAMMER magnetized at the wrist as well. So I'm just going to drill this hole out, bit of green stuff, then the magnet, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I've done the magnet in the shoulder joint now, so that is the WARHAMMER stroke staff completed. All we've got left to do is pop that into there, but before we do that I'm going to continue on with some of the other bits that we want to magnetize. So this arm here, the reason why we magnetize it is because it's going to double up as the shield and also the phase sword, like so. Now we've already got our magnets in there, so we need to magnetize the wrist joint just here. So again, exactly as before, we're going to drill in with our 1mm drill piece, a little bit of green stuff, some super glue, put the magnet in, make sure it's nice and flush, and we're going to do that in that hand, and we're going to do that also in this hand here. Okay, so that is the magnets done in the hands, and now when we've got our arm, we've got the hand magnetizing on both of those. Now we haven't finished magnetizing these pieces yet, but the rest I'm going to do after I've got these joints done here. And the reason for that is these are quite big shields, and I don't want to magnetize them fully into place until I know exactly where they're going to go. So for example, if I just magnetize it, say there, you know, it might get in the way of the model, so I might have to eventually sort of rotate it round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until we've got that piece in place before we put the extra magnets into the shields and into the forearm. Okay, so that's that arm done. So now we're going to move on to the last section, and that is the additional arm that goes on this side just here. And this arm is going to be holding either the sword or the gun. So once again, 1mm drill piece into the wrist and a 1mm drill piece into each of the hands at the wrist, and then we're going to put in a magnet and the opposite polarities in each one of those. Okay, I'm going to do that and then I will come back. Okay, so that's those magnets all done. So just show you that. So that's his arm, and he's got the gun option, and he's also got the sword. There you go. So that's all of the little magnets that I want to do up until this stage. The next stage, the biggest part I suppose, and that is next, which is to do these joints just in here. Okay, now we're going to start off with our 2mm drill piece, and we are going to drill a hole in the joint. Now this hole isn't for the magnet, in actual fact it's for some green stuff. Now this doesn't have to be a majorly big hole, just a little hole in there, a few mil in. So that's one side, and then we'll do that on the other side. Okay, so now we've got a bit more room basically to play with. So we're going to mix up some green stuff. Right, so I've got some green stuff, so we're going to take a chunk of this and we're going to place it in the joint just in there. And that's probably a bit too much. Okay, so that's one piece. And that's the second piece. Just push that in a little. Okay, now the next stage is to take our two sections we're going to get into position, and we are going to take a 2x2 magnet and we're going to put one on the end of there. And we are going to put one on the end of there. Right, now the little trick here is we are not going to use any glue for the next stage. Basically we're going to embed the magnets into the green stuff, get it into the correct position. It's going to be a bit tricky, we're going to have to take our time, be a bit patient, but we're going to get those magnets into position with no glue. Now because we're not using glue, we're only using the green stuff, we've got room to manoeuvre and room to play. So that's the idea, so let's have a go at this. So that's going to come round a bit more. I think what I'm going to do, because I know the angle this is going to go in, I'm just going to put this one in, I think, first. Okay. And then that's going to be on there. So it means that this one is going to go in at a slight angle. Okay, just going to tidy up the green stuff a little. Probably put a little bit too much green stuff in, to be fair, but better too much than not enough. Okay, so I'm just going to have a closer look at it now. So we've got that joint magnetized, we've got them roughly in the right position. Make sure that when we put the staff on, it doesn't drag on the floor or anything silly. So let's just check that. Yeah, it's not on the floor. Okay, so what we do now is we leave that to dry. I'm actually going to leave mine overnight so the green stuff is totally dry. Once we get back to this, what we're going to do is pull this out gently, and in theory what should happen is the magnet should stick in the green stuff and come away from the magnet in the on the actual arm. Now if that doesn't happen, it's not a problem, because it will leave us with a hole where the magnet needs to go, and then we can glue it in afterwards. The key thing is that we've got them in the right position for now. So I am going to leave that to dry overnight. In the meantime, I'm going to take all my other men and I'm going to prepare them up to the level that we're currently at, and then I'll come back and we'll finish them off. Okay, so this is the next day, and what I did after the last clip is I went into all the other models and I got them up to the same level as the one that we did on camera. Now as you can see, I've put them on Pringle lids. You can use obviously any little pot, but I find Pringle lids to be really useful. And I've numbered them, so I put a number on the base and a number on the lid, and then put all the corresponding bits there, just that I know which bits go with which model. Now when I've painted these, I'll transfer these numbers to the bottom of the base and then also into a little bag, probably a little money bag, and I'll put all the bits in the money bag so that I know which bits go with which model. Right, okay, so one of these guys, this one here, I've took the arms off and it went incredibly well. The magnets have all stayed in, etc. It works perfectly. So I'm going to do our one that we did on camera in a second. But first of all, I just want to go over a couple of little errors that occurred during the magnetizing progress. Now, these are things that happen, so I just want to sort of show you what happened and how I solved them. So first of all, on this guy, on the little sword, let's see if I can zoom in a bit. Okay, so basically I put the magnet in the wrong way, accidentally. So what I did is I had to dig the magnet out, so I had to cut into the hand to get the magnet out. I then put some green stuff in, put the magnet in the right way, and then I just covered I basically remoulded the front of the hand there. It's very, very simple. Just sort of moulded it in. And it looks fine. So you know, those things can happen, and if it does, then you just have to dig the magnet out and basically just sculpt in a little error. Now the other thing that also happened on this guy here, as I drilled this hole in, I went a little bit too deep, so I came out the other side. Now on the other side you've got like a little symbol. So what I did, I shaved the symbol off with a knife and a little file. And my plan will be to go in afterwards. I'm going to do two or three little green dots just to represent some sort of lights or symbol or something on the staff. So I've corrected the two little errors. You know, these things happen, especially when you're doing so many magnets. Okay, so back to our model. Time to find out if these magnets have worked how I think they're going to work. So let's just take him off of that little section. Right, so in theory we should be able to take these arms off without disturbing any magnets. So I'm going to start with the magnetized arm, and just basically I'm just going to gently take it off. It's come off perfectly. Let's try the other one. Perfect. And now these magnets are in here at the exact angle that we need them to get the staff to join together. So that's come out really, really nicely. Now this one here, where the green stuff had sort of slightly moulded to the other magnet, it's just pulled it slightly. I'm just going to go in with a knife and I'm just going to tidy that up. As long as we keep the magnet in the same position, then that's no problem at all. Okay, excellent. Right, I'm going to do that with the rest of them. The only thing to note about the rest of them is that this one here obviously only has one arm. This is almost like the leader, although there is no leader. So when you're doing this, basically you magnetize it exactly the same as the others, except you don't have to match up this arm to the war site. So it's a little bit easier. And again, I've just done exactly the same thing. So that comes off and it's now magnetized. Look at that, cool. Right, okay, so let's move on to the last stage. Right, actually, I just want to show you this one because I've just taken this off and it highlights a point quite well. So on this one, I've taken the two arms off, like so. They came off really easily, but check out this magnet here. Let me just see if I can zoom in a bit. Right, So can you see that? That magnet has a really funny angle. Now we would never have done that if we had just glued the magnet in, but using my little trick we were able to get the magnet at exactly the right angle so that they all match up. Now as I said, if you do pull these and that magnet that's in the joint comes out, it will just basically leave a little hole where the magnet was, and then you can just super glue it back into place. But in my experience, the green stuff usually holds it good enough. Right, okay, so yeah, let's have a look at the next stage. Okay, so on to the last section, and that's these two items here onto this arm. And one reason why I was waiting for this basically process here to be done was because obviously this is now free from the staff, and you can have this at any angle. And now the magnet's in, we can work out which angles suit it and which angles obviously don't and look a bit weird. So you can find a suitable angle, and then we can know how it's going to look with these two items on. So one there and one there. Now you see there's not too much room there, so it needs to come up. So I think it needs to be probably like that. Okay, so now we know how it's going to go, and yes, okay, these are magnetized and they do work, but they're just, I want to make that magnet there just a little bit more secure, especially on this big one, but if we're going to do the big one we might as well do this one as well. So what we're going to do is first of all work out where we want to put a magnet into the forearm. So I'm just going to get that angle again, let's just pop them down, see how it looks. So I think it's got to be something like that. So I would suggest we need it around that sort of angle there. So I'm going to get my little drill and I'm going to drill a little hole. I'm going to go as close as I can to this little area here, just because there's not so much room for this piece to go on. If you go up here there's not enough room for it. So you've got to go down here. Okay, now before we were drilling in and then putting the magnet flush to the top. With this one we want to go slightly deeper, because what we're going to have to do is cover the hole with some green stuff. Don't have to be too deep, but when we put the magnet in we want it to go all the way in and then go underneath. So I need to go into slightly more. Okay. Right, now let's just check this. So we're going to have his arm like that basically. Right. Should look pretty cool when he's done. Right. So now we need to do a hole on this side. So we're basically going to be looking to match it up. So just have a little look, sort of eyeball it. And it's going to be on this, there's two like ribs here, so you're looking at the back rib just this side, just to drill a little hole into that. Again, just go careful, try not to go all the way through. Now this one doesn't have to be too deep, this one can be flush, because this one isn't going to be seen. Perfect. Right, we are going to use a different technique here on this piece, so we'll do that in a minute. First of all, I'm going to glue a magnet into there and into there. Okay, so that's done. So in here we've gone slightly recessed so that we can later on cover that with a bit of green stuff and make it flush. And then that is now magnetized onto there, so it looks pretty good. So now we're going to have a go at magnetizing the shield here. So the first thing we're going to do is get a 2mm magnet that we've been using and just magnetise that on there. That's the basis of where we're going to go. And then we're going to have a look where this magnet ends up. So it ends up just down in that area, just down there. Now it's being blocked very slightly by that little section there, so I'm just going to cut that out. Let's just make sure it's in focus. There we go. Can just cut that out down there. There you go. Right, and now I'm going to get a tiny piece of green stuff and we're just going to pop it onto the magnet. Like so. I'm going to take a little bit of that off, I've got a bit too much. Okay. Now we're going to put some super glue in the shield, in that area where we know the magnet is going to go. I think my super glue is starting to run out. Right, there you go. So that is in place, and then we're going to take the arm and then push it down into the super glue. Just hold it there for a few seconds. Now because we've got that green stuff, that will really help it bond quicker than if we didn't have that green stuff in there. Still would bond, but just the green stuff really helps it sort of cement the join. So once that is dried, I should be able to pull that out, and there we go. We've left the magnet in place. So I'm just going to give that a few seconds just to really dry up. Okay, so that's all dried now, so let's pop it onto the model, see how cool he looks. Look at that. And obviously once he's got his sword thing there, it should look pretty imposing. Now obviously where each model has got a different arm, we're going to get a different position for the shield, which means you're going to get some different poses, which will be pretty cool. So there you go, that is that section. The last thing that I am going to do is going to get a little bit of green stuff, and I'm basically just going to fill this hole just in there. So I'm going to put the green stuff on, just sort of make it flush a little bit. I'll use this tool here. This is a colour shaper. This is like a silicone brush basically, so you can use this to sort of smooth it down, but ultimately what I will do is when the green stuff's fully dried is I will get a little file and I will just gently file the green stuff down, and you won't even be able to see that the magnet's there, especially after it's all painted. Right, okay, so I am going to continue doing that on the other models, and then we'll come back with like a final clip at the end. Okay, there you go, all finished. So I did a little bit of extra work on them. I've currently got them in the Lychguard format with the war size. I'm just going to zoom in and show you the extra work that I did. Okay, so I went in with some green stuff, first of all on their shoulders where there's quite a bad join, and I just filled in the gap on their shoulders. And as I said right at the beginning of the video, that spine section, which isn't glued on, that's just put into place for now. I went to the top of that and I put a little piece of green stuff. I basically rolled up a little green stuff ball and flattened it down into position just to give it a little bit of extra detail to that. Also done some work on the war sight. On the staff of the war sight, you can see there where I've put again a couple of green dots and just added a little of extra detail to that section where I had to shave off the original symbol. And in actual fact, I've got 3 war sights which ended up like that. So that section is quite tricky to get the right depth. But there's an option, as I said, that's very, very simple to do. You just roll up a tiny piece of green stuff into a little ball, and then just use your colour shaper just to basically squash it down into place, and that's the result. Okay, so that is those. What I'm going to do now is put them into the next format, which is a very, very simple switch. So we're going to now put them into the Praetorians with the Rod of Covenant, and all we have to do for that is take the end of this war sight off and then pop on that section just there. So I'm going to do that for all of them so you can just have a quick look. Okay, so there you go. So that's the Praetorians there with the rod. So not too much difference there, just a change of the staff. Now on this black cloth, it looks like the staff is actually on the ground, but it's not. There's quite a bit of room actually there. Okay, so that's those. Now we're going to set them up in the other format. Okay, so here they are as Praetorians, and that's with the void blade and the particle caster. Because we've obviously got the arms all in different positions, so I'm doing the magnetization, we've got some quite nice different poses as well, so they don't all look the same, which is good. Right, okay, we're going to set them up into the next format. Okay, there you go, that's the last format, so that's the Lychguard with the hyperphase sword and the dispersion shield. So that's Lychguard and Praetorians magnetized with all 4 weapon options. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was useful to you. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. Beam me up.